Hello, everybody. A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Miloda Academy of Financial Studies, I warmly welcome all of you who are joining us online from different parts of the country as well as the globe. Miloda Academy of Financial Studies was established in 2013. We conduct various training programs for public and private sector officials and also provides international level of facilities. In near future, we will be functioning under Kottalavala Defence University as a faculty. Life with New Normal webinar series is designed to create awareness on the impact of COVID-19 and identify individual responsibilities to face the new normal with confidence in the pandemic. In this special webinar, we have a very distinguished panel of experts share their knowledge and experience with us on the topic of mistakes, missteps, and lessons learned from COVID-19. I would like to welcome on board and introduce Mrs. Gayandi Alvis as a moderator to the webinar. Ms. Gayanidi Alvis is the Global Chairperson of Women in Logistics and Transport. She was the former Director of Customer Service, Unilever Sri Lanka, and first female Director of Supply Chain and first Global Auditor appointed from South Asia in Unilever. She was also immediate past chairperson CILT Sri Lanka and she is a board member of WCIC. She is currently holding the positions of non-executive independent director of Singa Sri Lanka PLC and director of Logicare Private Limited. She holds a MBA from Postgraduate Institute of Management of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and MSc in Food Process Engineering from the University of UK. She did her undergraduate studies in chemical engineering at the University of Moratua before moving to the UK for her master's. Currently, she is a consultant and visiting lecturer for many universities locally and overseas, as well as senior consultant to Miloda Academy of Financial Studies. Dear Madam, I cordially invite you to continue the webinar.
Thank you, Tanuja. Ayubowan, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to moderate the session and also moderate the distinguished panelists who are present here today. As we all know, COVID has really impacted all our lives and livelihoods as well. It's impacted globally, and the impact of COVID has really impacted our country in a considerable manner. So before we move on to the panel discussion, I would like to start off with a little bit of, if all the participants, if you have any questions, all of you will be muted. Only the participants of the panel discussion will be speaking. And if you want to ask any question from a particular panelist, you will have to type your questions in the chat. And if you want to direct it to a particular panelist, you can mention that, or you can have a general question which any of the panelists can answer. We will be in, after 2 rounds of questions, we will be moving on to the audience questions, and then we will come back to the question and answers once again. Thank you again. Let me first, before we move on to the panel discussion proper, we'll introduce the speakers. But before I move on to that, I must inform you that we had 4 speakers to be part of this panel, but unfortunately, Dr. Kapila Vikramanayaka, who's the director of Medical Supply Division, is unable to attend this webinar today due to his commitments in the ministry. So we are sorry about it, but I know that that is more important. Yeah. So, and then also our Director General BOI, Mr. Sanjay Mohotal, is on his way from Eraur from official commitment. So he will very soon link up with us today. from his phone. So pardon us for bear with us until that happens. So Tanuja, I'm sure you will be linking up with him and connecting him to link up to the webinar. Okay, so I'll start off with Dr. Jaruan Bandara. Before that, I will introduce him. Dr. Jaruan Bandara is currently working as a Deputy Director of Medical Research Institute, MRI. He holds a MBBS and a medical administration degree from University of Ruhuna, and also a diploma in psychology. He's an experienced public health official and a community physician and a medical cosmetologist. He also has a experience in laser aesthetic medicine from Indian Academy of Medicine. So we are privileged to have you, doctor, as a panelist today. Our next.
Thank you very much, Annie.
Thank you, doctor. We have the next panelist is Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri. Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri is the founder, CEO of the Human Capital Partner and the lead consultant at HCP Consulting. He's a senior consultant to Miloda Academy of Financial Studies. He's also a chartered accountant, corporate trainer, leadership coach, strategist, management consultant, a lecturer, researcher, and a writer with many years of rich corporate experience, holding senior leadership positions in leading local as well as multinational organizations. He's a very busy person, has taken part in many webinars, and today I know he was part of 2 or 3 webinars. So busy personality, and I think we are happy to have you, Chaminda. He also has fast-tracked his career ladder to hold top leadership positions as the youngest member of the senior leadership teams of the entities he served, and has won many awards and accolades both in his academic arena as well as in the career. Okay, although we can't see Sanjay on the screen at the moment, let me also introduce him. Whenever he links up, we will turn to him. Sanjay Mohotala is the Director General of Board of Investment. He was the Managing Director and Partner of Boston Consultancy Group based in Singapore. Prior to that, he was working as a brand manager in Unilever Sri Lanka. Mr. Mohotala holds a BSc from University of Moratuwa. He has a BSc in Electronic and Telecommunication Engineering. And then he's a Fulbright scholar, and he has an MBA from the Anderson School of Management, UCLA, USA. And he was responsible for corporate development, he's a principal investor and a private equity practices, and led the transport and logistics practices across Asia Pacific. So very experienced person heading as the Director General of the BUI. Okay, so I'll first turn to Dr. Jaruan Bandara, and I will, in my first round, I will ask a question regarding the topic that we have already aligned to this webinar, that is the lessons learned from COVID. See, it is important for us to learn from the past failures or experiences that we have had, because this kind of pandemic we are experiencing after many more years. So this is something new, not only for Sri Lanka, for the whole world. So we experienced the first wave in March, and we actually managed it very well. And unfortunately, after 7-8 months in October, we again experienced this COVID second wave, and that is we are in now. And I would like to ask from General Doctor first. Along with the rest of the world, Sri Lanka also has been fighting this virus for most part of the year. So we somehow or other steered it in the first wave, and second wave also we are on course, but we haven't really got there yet. But this may not be the first pandemic that we will be facing, but it's important for us to learn from the lessons. So in your area of expertise, and especially the health sector, what have we learned? Have we really learned from our past mistakes, or how are we moving forward now? Over to you, Doctor.
Well, Kaini and all the participants. So still, I think not only us, the world, the people in the world also, still they are learning about COVID. So many research are going on. So, and many activities are going on. Still, now it's more than a year now after the COVID detection of the COVID. Still, the world fighting to find out a better vaccination or tablet for the COVID. So still, not only us, the world is learning about the studying about COVID. So, but during the first wave of COVID, so we could, handle COVID very successfully because we had a very good plan to face the COVID problem. So actually, the Medical Research Institute started to talk about COVID in last year, December 2019, December. Even before that, we were talking about another communicable disease. It was not declared as pandemic, but it was about to be declared as pandemic. That is Ebola. Ebola was declared as pandemic, but after that, the same time we go to discuss about the COVID-19. It was named as not the COVID-19, that novel coronavirus. It was named at the start. So during the December period, we discussed about COVID-19, how to detect COVID-19. We had a plan to detect COVID-19 from airport and until the treatment of the patient. So because of we detected patients early and the virus behavior is not that strong, so we could control the number of patients. This time what happened was, according to the studies of epidemiology and the other departments of the health sector and other scientists in the country, so this virus strain, that is a type of virus, is the behavior of the genomic pattern of virus is little stronger, so it can spread easily and multiply easily. So it's the virus itself is the behavior is little dangerous and aggressive. So that is why we get many number of cases within shortest time. Still, unlike in other countries, our country, we are keeping our hand very closely with this disease pattern and the disease conditions and the people and the tracing of people. Because of that, I think we are in a position to control the virus spreading, and if we contribute well to control this condition, still we are in a winning battle. So if you ask who is the most responsible person to control this virus and who are the people, I would say all members of this country and all people individually are everyone has to behave as a responsible person to control this disease condition. If one person behave badly, if one person behave irresponsibly, so that person can be a culprit and disaster to the other population of this country. So it is a responsibility of everyone in this country. We can't blame the other people, freely. There are things to be happen. There are things happening. There are problems actually when managing this kind of disaster situation. Because of that, so we still, everyone has to take the responsibility, and no one can behave unsafely because this virus is carrying, cultivating, spreading. All the culprits are human being. So without human being, virus can't live. So if we do not provide our bodies to virus to be survived, so that is the point we have to keep in our mind.
Thank you, Doctor. We will get more details about that in the next round. So let me now turn to Chaminda. Chaminda, with your vast experience in the corporate life and the business environment, where did we go wrong in the second wave actually?
You, Gani, and it's nice to have an eminent panel like Dr. Jairuan. We see him all the time from screen, and it's a pleasure and an honor for me also to be sitting along with such a panel and giving my views. Uh, I would like to put it this way, Gayani. This is a brilliant opportunity for us, right? For me, it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for all of us to relook at the world, relook at the life, and it's a wonderful break for us that we all were waiting for to reflect upon ourselves. And I think most of the people learned what are the real priorities of life during this time. And it gave an opportunity to rearrange those. And also, on a soft note, I must say, this gave us a very strong message how invisible things are important in our life. We always go after material things. We always go after things that we can see. But a small, tiny virus that we cannot even see the impact it has done to the entire world. So it's a different way of looking at things. On a business point of view, uh, the impact is enormous. This is the biggest ever lockdown in the business world. None of the previous pandemics have done this to the world. Economically, everyone is stagnant. Now, you ask me a question: what went wrong? I think, in very simple term, I would say we have come up with the first wave successfully. We celebrated it. We were happy about it, but we forgot the fact that what was over in the first wave was the effort to fight with the pandemic at that point, but not the entire virus. We didn't find a solution. We didn't stop the virus. We just took a break from it. So when most of the people thought when the lockdown is over, virus is over, right? I see that trend even today, right? There are certain areas you can see isolated areas, you can see curfew, and the moment that is lifted, people go out as if everything is over, because that is very, very dangerous assumptions to have. When people talk about new normal, some people think being normal when the virus is around. It's not about being normal, going back to your usual self. You need to be careful that there is something that is still around and how we adjust. And also, the second thing is another area that went wrong with us was when we talk about the new normal, for most of the people, new normal is a different world after the attack of this pandemic, but many thought it is a world without the pandemic. It's like the tsunami. Tsunami came and hit us, it went back, and then we thought, okay, let's start from the beginning. But the difference in this corona situation is the new normal is not a new world without the pandemic. The new normal is a new world with the pandemic. So I think the way things are going, you cannot expect things to go, well, and you can't expect, even if we find a vaccine, it doesn't mean that things are going to be over within the next 2 months or 3 months. I think it's a dangerous assumption to have either. So the new normal is how we redefine the way we live, the way we work, while living with the pandemic around, right? Because I must tell you, maybe we will find a vaccine or solution for corona, but does that mean that we don't have the risk of not having another version or a different virus? No, we will still have that. We will still have that. So the message here is that we should not for a moment take this mindset away that we are safe, we do not have a threat. Even if a vaccine is found, I still believe that we need to now think of a new way of working, new way of living. And it also gave us very good lessons to discipline us, right? How hygiene is important for us, right? And how you need to organize yourself. And more importantly, it's we always say, even for argument's sake, keep people at arm's length, right? So Corona has given us the lesson in the hard way. And further, in the business world, it has also told us how we can work without being physically present. And this is a fundamental change in the entire working environment that we are used to. We are talking about a new culture because now with this new concept like working from home and technology, everything now gives us the option. You don't need that many leaves that you used to have before, right? Because you can still be at the home and work. And that also gives a different way of working in the work setup, that is the organization setup, how you lead people, how you drive people, and how you measure performance. Because remote leadership is a new concept that we need to master in current context. You can't lead your staff the traditional way you did. You can't keep a cane and stand behind and drive people. You can't even see them now, right? So sometimes your manager must be working from home. He must be attending to a meeting while scraping coconut, right? But still, you are multitasking, but you are managing both. But how, as leaders, now you manage them? So all ways of leading people, the input-driven leadership mechanism will no longer work. Now you need to look at output-driven, right? And technology-driven. And more importantly, how to lead people when you don't see them, right? How to give that human touch without touching them. These are all new skills that we need to learn and study. And I can talk about many other things like that. The point, to sum up your first question, right? I will come up with many more aspects in the time to come as you go along with these questions. So to sum up, we forgot the fact that pandemic is still around, although the markets are open, although the borders are open, although the government wants us to go back and work. And I think doctor will agree with me, our risk is much more higher than what it was before, because we're still identifying cases time to time. And I may be very extremist, but there are certain cases some people say, maybe for in a joking way, I would say, until you are tested and proven negative, you are positive. So that is the assumption that we go by that. So that take all the precautions, even if you are home, behave like you are infected. So take all these precautions, hot water, whatever other treatment. So I think that mindset is important, not to be pessimistic about it, but to be prepared better to focus on your health and the rest of it. So I think that's a start from me. Let's go ahead with it.
Thank you, Chaminda. I think it's very important. It's the mindset that you need, the discipline that is very important. I think if you look at some of the countries who have really successfully managed, like us, we were without technology and all that, we managed it very well in the first wave. Like look at Singapore and Taiwan and Korea and all that, the discipline. And when you are asked to, be self-quarantine, they will do that. Nobody should come and watch you whether you're doing that. So you need to be disciplined. Yes, we as a nation, I think we are a bit lacking that way. Somebody must come and check with the PHI, or somebody come and check whether you are there. I think that is something, I think this big lesson learned, actually personally for me, as well as for most of us, that we have to be self-disciplined before pointing a finger at anybody else, to the government or the health officials or anybody, because we know the health officials and the government and the military is really working hard to make this place a safer place for all of us and for us to come back to normalcy whenever that happens. Okay, so I just got a message. Sanjay is just few minutes away from reaching home, but Sanjay, I don't know, I know you are online.
Yeah, Gayani, I'm online. I can hear you clearly. So I think if this is good, we can continue. In case if the line drops off, I will just join back again.
I think as the initial remarks, what are the main lessons learned from this COVID? I mean, from your perspective, Sanjay. Then when I go to the next round, maybe you can go home and answer the next round, right? Okay, the initially short remarks from you. Yeah.
I think I think many of the two speakers before me touched on the key learnings. And I think for me, from a business point of view,
Yes.
it again teaches us there is a silver lining in every dark cloud, and I think that's what we were able to capture after the first wave of COVID, or being able to manage the first wave of COVID outbreak.
Sure.
In terms of a country point of view, for us, because we are heavily dependent on exports, given most of our foreign exchange earning avenues have been curtailed, especially when it comes to tourism, which we lost about 3 billion worth of revenue that we would have got. Luckily, the remittance have kept up, but the exports needed to kick in to help, and I think because we curtailed it well in the beginning, so our economy and our exporters, we were able to secure quite a bit of orders, and we were actually getting into perhaps where we would have had the best ever quarter in the Sri Lankan history in terms of the exports for the last 3 months, and then the second wave hit. Now, if you ask me what are the learnings, and I think the two esteemed speakers alluded to some of the misgivings in terms of the kind of the taking it or celebrating it early and saying that, look, we have beaten COVID and everyone going back to a sort of a normal, than actually staying in the new normal. And the second
I think we lost him. Okay, I think we lost him. So we'll.
part of it is also the complexity we are facing in this wave of the people sporadically across the country. They were from people who were traveling into the country because of that. But in this situation, the outbreak happened such way in a concentrated area where a large workforce worked together, or at a fish market where that had multiple links to the entire country. The epidemic, and I think Dr. Jairwan would agree with me. I think with the viral loads and the type of the strain that we had, also it actually spread fast as well. So I think one of the learnings, if I reflect back, is that to be able to curtail one is that the must. We all have to. It's not the employers. It's not the police. It's not the army. It's just that our well-being is for us, and we need to make sure that, in a way, that if I would say, the paranoid survive. So to think that any person next to you could be a person, I'm not saying that is the extent of the virus, but if you want to really take precautions for yourself as well as for the others, we just need to behave that way. So I think that's the first part of it. Secondly, I think the key learning is, just like the speaker before me alluded, I think there's a new norm in terms of managing and working styles and how you work. And I think that's something that we have to learn fast. Because we have been working in a environment or a culture where teams are ahead of us, right? We talk about having very functional and productive teams, but having a team concept when you're working remotely, when you're not being able to build a bond and leadership and so on and so forth, those are challenges I think we have to face, and we will continue to face, and we need to find a way. And on top of all these things, I think one of the other thing is the mental health aspect of it, which we hardly talk about. And I think being an Asian country, we don't normally talk about those things. But working remotely is one of those issues, not just the people who have lost jobs, but also people working remotely, not having the affinity and the camaraderie that you get when you're working in an organization. Those are some of the challenges, I would say. So if I just sum up, the couple of the key learnings is, like, this is a new normal, as the speakers said. We need to really work through it. Secondly, the paranoid survive, so we need to really think about how we act, and act fast, and act decisively. Thirdly, I would say it's about the adjusting our business culture into the new norm to fight this battle, to make sure that Sri Lanka continues to be on the right economic path.
Okay, thank you, Sanjaya. I will get back to you. in the second round, once you probably would reach home by then. Okay, I would now like to ask from the audience if you have any questions. I don't see any questions on the chat. Please do feed in questions if you have any. And then if you want to specifically direct it to a particular panelist, you can do so. And until such time you start thinking and putting into the chat, I would move on to the second round. I'll move on to Dr. Jarwan Bandara once again.
Yeah.
Doctor, now we hear about different types of tests. I mean, I'm sure the general public and most of us, we do hear from media and all that and from medical professionals. But I would like to, for the benefit of the audience, I would like to once again want to ask from you the different types of tests we have now. Because these days we quite talk about the antigen testing, PCR testing, anyway, we have been talking about it. Please tell us, enlighten us about the difference and what it does and why some of the tests take longer time. Some of the tests you can do it rapid tests. So please tell us what it is and how we can get a bigger population tested. And that will be the only way to understand how much is infected in the population.
Gani, I think it's better to speak in English. So the antigen testing and PCR testing and the antibody testing, all those three are the testing method to detect COVID-19 infection.
Yes.
The PCR means polymerase chain reaction. That means you identify the genome of the virus. That is, you go into the nucleus, න්‍යෂ්ටි ඇතුළට ගිහිල්ලා ඒක ඇතුලේ තියෙනවා ජාන වර්ණ දේහ. මේ වර්ණ දේහවල තියෙන රසායනික දේ හඳුනා ගැනීම තමයි PCR කියන්නේ polymerase chain reaction කියන්නේ. ඒකෙදි RNA virus එක DNA බවට පත් කරලා ඒ වගේම virus එකේ තියෙන ඒ රසායනික ද්‍රව්‍ය ගුණනය කිරීමක් කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ එක single viral RNA එකක් තිබුණත් ඒක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අහුවෙන විදිහේ හරිම sensitive පරීක්ෂණයක් තමයි particular පරීක්ෂණයක් තමයි PCR කියන්නේ. එතකොට that PCR test called as the gold standard test for detecting the COVID-19 virus. PCR එක ගැන කියව යුතු වැදගත් කාරණාවක් තියෙනවා. ඒ තමයි virus එක ඇඟට ඇවිල්ලා, that means after infection until several days, that means maybe about 3-4 days time, maximum 5 days, until 5 days, we won't detect this PCR test positive. That is one thing. Other thing, usually we do PCR. අපි PCR කරන්නේ උණ කැස්ස හෙම්බිරිසා උගුරේ අමාරුව තියෙන contact history එකක් තියෙන කෙනෙක්. I think you can hear me. Kaini?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I can.
So PCR, but රෝග ලක්ෂණ එන්න ඉන්ෆෙක්ෂන් එක ඇවිල්ලා දවස් 3-4කට ඉස්සෙල්ලා රෝග ලක්ෂණ එන්න. අද මට කැස්ස වුණ හෙම්බිරිසාව තියෙනවා නම් උගුරේ අමාරුව තියෙනවා නම් මාව ආසාදින වුණා නම් 5 days back. අදට දවස් 3කට ඉස්සෙල්ලා රෝග ලක්ෂණ එන්න දවස් 2-3කට ඉස්සෙල්ලාවත් ඉඳමුත් අපේ කේටේ එහෙම නැත්නම් කෙල බිඳිතිවල වෛරස් එක තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. PCR test එකකින් වෛරස් එකේ ජාන හඳුනා ගැනීම කරන හින්දා අපි ඒකට කියන gold stand test. ඒක 70%ක් තමයි sensitive. එහෙම නැත්නම් සංවේදීතාවය දක්වන්නේ වෛරස් එක හඳුනා ගැනීම සඳහා. PCR test එක කියන්නේ ඊළඟ එක තමයි කාලය ගත වෙන එක. So PCR කරන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා අපිට ශෛලය ඇතුලේ එහෙම නැත්නම් වෛරස් එක ඇතුලේ තියෙන ජානය we have to extract it. It takes time because in our country still most of laboratories are doing manual extraction. It takes about 3 to 4 hours manual extraction. Few laboratories like some laboratories in labs in MRI and especially the new lab installed at BIA Bandaranagar International Airport, that PCR detecting lab, and maybe Candian Anuradhapura. So few machines are there to extract. So still in this country we don't have fully automated machine where you put sample from one end and then other end you will get the automated printed report. So still we don't have that technology. That is why many of the steps are being conducted by the people who are involved in this, that is virologists and the MLTs, and human involvement is high. That is why it takes time. So usually in any country, it takes about more than 12 hours to give a report. In some countries like Australia, they take 2 days to issue a report. But our country, within 24 hours, anyhow, we issue the report. That is PCR. Antigen testing means the virus එකේ cover එකේ තියෙනවානේ antigen කියලා જાතියක්. ඒවට කියන protein වලින් හැදලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒක අපි අඳිනකොට ලස්සන කූරු කූරු වගේ ඇඳට එහෙම එකක් නෙවෙයි තියෙන්නේ. virus එකේ පිටපැත්තේ cover එකේ තියෙන විශේෂ protein එකක් තියෙන virus එක හඳුනා ගැනීම සඳහා. අන්න ඒ protein එක හඳුනා ගන්න පරීක්ෂණය තමයි antigen testing කියලා කියන්නේ. එතකොට කාගේ හරි සෙම පටල සාම්පලයක් අපි හිතමු ගත්තාම ඒ සෙම පටල සාම්පලයේ තියෙන වෛරස් ඇක්ටිව් වෛරස් නම් ඒ කියන්නේ තව එක්කෙනෙක්ට ලෙඩේ බෝ කරන්න පුළුවන් වෛරස් එකක් නම් ඒ වෛරස් එකේ කවර් එකේ අර ඇන්ටිජන් තියෙනවා. ඩෙඩ් වෛරස් එක එහෙම නැහැ. ඒතර ඒ කවර් එකේ තියෙන වෛරස් ඇන්ටිජන් කියන ප්‍රෝටීන් එක හඳුනා ගන්න එකක් තමයි රැපිඩ් ඇන්ටිජන් ටෙස්ටිං කියලා කියන්නේ. එතකොට ඒකෙදිත් අපි සෙම පටලයක් ගන්නවා නාහේ ඇතුලෙන් අරගෙන විශේෂ වූ ද්‍රාවණයට දාලා ඒකේ බිඳුවක් අර ඇන්ටිජන් ටෙස්ට් කරන ස්ට්‍රිප් එකට දානවා. හරියට ප්‍රෙග්නන්සි ටෙස්ට් එකේදී අපි අර ඩිප් කරලා බලනවානේ යූරින් වල ස්ට්‍රිප් එක. ඒ වගේ මේකෙදි කරන්නේ ඒ අර බිඳු කීපයක් අරන් ඒ ස්ට්‍රිප් එකට දාපුවාම ඒ ස්ට්‍රිප් එකේ මාක් වෙනවා නම් COVID-19 ඉන්ෆෙක්ෂන් එක තියෙනවා කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ ඇන්ටිජන් ටෙස්ට් එක පොසිටිව් එක්කෙනාගේ තියෙන විශේෂත්වය තමයි එයාගේ ඇඟේ මේ වෙලාවේ ඇක්ටිව්ලි ඉන්න මල්ටිප්ලයි වෙන තව එක්කෙනෙක්ට පතුරවන්න පුළුවන් රෝගී තත්ත්වයක් තියෙනවා කියන එක. දැන් ඒක ඒ වුණාට දැන් ඇන්ටිජන් පොසිටිව් වෙන එක විශේෂිත වූ කාල සීමාවකදී විතරයි වෙන්නේ. PCR කෙනෙක්ගේ ඇඟේ විස බීජය තියෙනවා නම් අපි සති 2කින් නෙවෙයි 3කින් නෙවෙයි 4කින් කරත් PCR පොසිටිව් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඇන්ටිජන් පොසිටිව් වෙන්නේ රෝගය පතුරවන්න මල්ටිප්ලයි වෙන එක්කෙනෙක්ගේ ඇඟේ තමයි. එතකොට දැන් අපි හිතමු දැන් අද අපි අපිට අද දවසේ විස බීජ ආසාදනය වුණා නම් if we were infected today, maybe over 3-4 days time, if we do antigen and PCR, both may be positive on day 5th. But when day 7 or 10, there are antigen negative විරුද්ධ අපේ ඇඟේ antibody හදනවා. එතකොට එයා antigen negative වෙන්න පුළුවන්, but still PCR positive වෙන්න පුළුවන්. After 14 days, still PCR positive වෙන්න පුළුවන්, but අර virus එක multiply වෙන්නේ නැති හින්දා එයාගේ PCR positive වුණත් සමාජයට ලෙඩේ බෝ වෙන එක ලොකු රිස්ක් එකක් නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් ඇන්ටිජන් ටෙස්ටිං 10 වෙනි දවසේ කරොත් ස්ටිල් එයාගේ ලෙඩේ බෝ වෙන්න පුළුවන් වුණාට එයාගේ ඇඟේ ඇන්ටිජන් ටෙස්ටිං එක නෙගටිව් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද ඇන්ටිබොඩි හදන්න පටන් අරගෙන හින්දා. ඒ නිසා විද්‍යාඥයෝ කියන කතාව තමයි scientistලා what the scientists say is if somebody is antigen positive, you have to take it as highly sensitive person, he can spread the disease. If the antigen testing is negative, still we have to do PCR and see whether he has got COVID-19 or not. If we need to diagnose, if the person is having highly suspicious contagious history, contact history, not the contagious history. So antibody testing is something in your blood. When the infection comes to our body, our immune system work against the infection, against the virus. Then in our body defense system, that is white blood cell system, we produce the special kind of protein enzymes to attack the virus, the antigen. That the attacking agents are the antibody. So antibody detection also we can do in laboratories. It's done in the MRI now. So if somebody is having antibody, that means in his body, his or her body, there's a possibility of destroy his or her own virus, COVID-19 virus. So then if somebody is discharging with COVID positive 19, still antibody is there. So he is lesser dangerous to the society. So he will not, if somebody is having antibody, he may not give infection to the society. So those are the 3 steps. Antigen test is very rapid. We can do it within 15 to 20 minutes. Within half an hour, we can issue results. PCR, it takes to issue results about 24 hours. currently that's what is happening in this country. An antibody test, of course, within several hours we can give results if the facilities are in and around the sample.
So, doctor, the moment in our country do PCR, and to what extent are we doing in the other two? Antigen also recently started the antigen testing. So,
Yes.
what is it are we doing now other than the PCR?
Our main testing, the testing is more important, Gayani, because so when during the Sanjay speaking and Chaminda speaking, what I realized was if we need our working force to start their working again and start businesses and entrepreneur works and restart the working in their office and all. If somebody is suspected to be got COVID or maybe infected several days before, so it's better to test them for COVID-19, whether they are infectious or not. So that is because of that, it's very important for testing. Currently, we do PCR testing. Our PCR testing capacity is still around 10,000 per day, which has to be increase the number of testing per day, because it is the gold standard test for detect an infected person. So antigen test health sector started recently, usually in mass scale, like the big gathering areas like this housing schemes and all. If we want to check n number of cases within shortest time, so it's best thing is antigen testing, because we can detect people who are spreading infection at the moment we are testing. So it's very important. The negative people, if we suspect that there's a strong contact history, so they have to undergo PCR testing with time. And antibody testing, if somebody wants to discharge a person from hospital, or if somebody wants to, deal with infected person, wants to go to the society, and if still we are suspecting that that person is not cured well, so we can do antibody and see whether that person is having good number of antibody level developed against COVID-19. So that's also, all those three tests are available in country.
So, doctor, all three in the private sector as well now?
Well, no. For the time being, no. But I think government will allow in future when the need comes. Currently, the Ministry of Health is conducting all those. The PCR is conducting by the private sector.
Thank you. I think very comprehensive. I'm sure those who are hearing about it and got a very good understanding on the difference and what it does, and then give a good insight. Now, I see some questions coming into the chat. So I think time is also running out. So therefore, I will try to ask these questions. So one question is about the vaccine. I think the first participant is actually quoting a particular international NGO, quoting that 13% of the world population is the rich nation, and they claim that 51% of the vaccine already they have allocated to these rich nations, and by the time we get it to this part of the world, the developing nations, it will be around 2022. So I really don't know the authenticity of that information, but I saw WHO also has mentioned the 20% of the volume will be available for most vulnerable communities in developing world as well. So any thoughts that you would like to at this stage to answer that question about whether we have to
Gani, the declaration of WHO, the chairman is though the world is producing vaccines, still you have to be live with. You have to live with the new normal behaviors, behavior activities like the distance, hand washing, and keep your face mask continuously when you're out of the house, out of your own place, and not to touch your face, eyes, nose, and mouth. So even though you get the vaccine, still you have to behave safely. That is what WHO, the head of the WHO, also declared. The other thing, not only one company is producing vaccine in the world, so they are testing many, again, hundreds of vaccines. So in future, of course, none of the company will just disregard their production. So they are in future there may be more vaccines and more competition about pricing and the availability. So there won't be that much of problem. But until next month, March, so we can't expect, according to the scientist papers and all, until next month March. So we can't expect the exact declaration from the WHO. Still, they are saying they are telling that there will be a good vaccine in 2021, early 2021. That's what. But as a country, in our country, that 20% out of 20% to this part of the world, already Sri Lankan government has asked from WHO. We also need that 20%, that portion to our country already. That has been declared to the WHO according to my understanding and knowledge.
Okay, now I see some linking up. So they are. I think I will post that question to Sanjay. Sanjay, there's a question by a participant asking the adaptation of technology by the private sector is very poor. I would say COVID has really accelerated the adaptation of technology. So what are your thoughts and what more can be done? I mean, we are at a very nascent stage in most public sector institutions. So you coming from a consulting background, I'm sure you have lots to talk about, but what are your thoughts and what are you suggesting? How can we adapt technology to face the new normal with confidence?
Well, I think it's a topic to be discussed on another forum completely, I would say, end to end. But I think at least if you look at public sector, because meaning I came from being in the private sector, being in Singapore for almost 15 years. And I think I was joking with Gayani at one point saying, like, when I retire, maybe I will end up supplying A4 sheets for government sector, because that's a lucrative business, because everyone does work with just a piece of paper. And then when I give it to another junior or someone below me to take into it, and if I give it to two people, it's copied and then get copied and then copied, and you'll see volumes of files, right? And I think in terms of the technology adoption point of view, there have been some easy quick wins that happen. The fact that we are on a webinar like this, using Zoom or Google Meet or such technologies, that was not used in the public sector, for sure, not to the extent that we are seeing now. The face-to-face meetings was an insistent norm, and now I think that people get done on WhatsApps, phones and whatnot. There are a certain amount of public sector work people that were working remotely, so which is also, I think, a positive part of it. But I think the solution to get to the level that what you are hoping for, they would not happen immediately. I think it will happen gradually over the next 1 year or so, with two important things happening in the country. One is the universal ID card that is when HE was the defense secretary, was pioneering it. Now he's trying to roll it out. Once that comes in, you can actually link in a lot of these services, public sector services like Singapore or any other country I've seen, onto the ID card. Like, I think if you look at the budget statement, they were talking about taxes being paid through that unique ID card. So that gives you the basis on which all these public services can be built on. So I think within a year or so, with the push of ICTA and the push that the government's putting to adapt technology, these things will happen. And since Diane is in logistics, you know that most of the custom declaration used to be paper, and finally after COVID, after many years of trying, it has gone online. So I think these are small but critical and decisive steps that happen in public sector. Years it wasn't a switch on like a bulb coming up, but I think we see that even in areas where it was difficult in the past. One good example, company registrations issuing and all those things, they're happening. But to make it a wave, the small waves build up to a big wave. So I think it's coming. But perhaps from the private sector point of view, it would not be seen as fast enough. But I think the critical and pivotal decisions are being made. So I would expect more to come in the next 6 months to 1 year.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think we are, I mean, although some of us may not have seen it, I think COVID has really accelerated the digitalization in the public sector, and as well as some of the practices which we were reluctant to implement, especially working from home and the trust deficit that we had. It's slowly happening. What we couldn't do, it's happening. I think in a way, COVID, although it's bad, it's a blessing in disguise. So I think, this crisis has really enabled us to look at things in a different way as well. So I would now turn to Chaminda. Now, this COVID, the hardest hit population in the industry is the informal sector. That is your pet area as well. How are they going to come out of this? Because I think, will this be an opportunity for us to get them on track and, put them on the mainstream? How can we do that?
Yes, Jayani, thank you for asking that question, because if you look at this segments, SMEs, family businesses, small timers, the problem with them is they do not have the capacity to sustain if the revenue model is shocked, right? If there's a shock on that, because maybe a large organization can sustain without business for a while. They have reserves, they have other capacities, and they have other arrangements. But these people, most of the people, the main thing is when there's a hit, they don't even know what the impact is, because we have seen in a larger proportion of this segment does not maintain proper books of accounts, right? And they don't know what's happened to their business. As long as they get some cash out of the business on a daily basis, they think that the business is stable.
Yeah.
So the number one problem is not having proper records to know what the impact even. So I do a lot of work these days with a lot of people and businesses. The first thing I do is to do a impact analysis or the health check to see where exactly has the impact, right? But the problem is still we have issues with the information. The second problem we have with this segment is this segment, they work with a limited number of resources, people. Sometimes you have one-man shows in many organizations. There may be one or two key players who runs the entire show, right? When the government comes up with even these health guidelines, if you want to run the organization, have 1/3 of your staff working and 1/3 of staff, working from home, and all these guidelines, there's no way that these people can apply them, because they are dependent on a limited number of people. Then technology is something that they need to get into and look at how they can build capacity with that side. Thirdly, this one I have seen not only in the small sector, even in the large organization, a survey finding has showed at least 1/3 of the organizations surveyed, these are large organizations, didn't have a proper business continuity planning, right? And at the SME level, it's almost zero, right? So what happens is people think that everything will take place in some form with little disturbance here and there, but they are not prepared to face a disruption for their business. And I always say, whoever the clients come to me, if you can't survive for 3 months without business, you have not done your business. Simple as that. Because you have to plan disruption in current world. It may be yesterday attack, it may be coronavirus, it can be something else. You never know what it is, but you should have a margin for that. So both BCP and DRP, disaster recovery planning, is also on top of it, is required. That tells you how resilient you are in case of a shock. And people don't know how to recover. And one of the problems that I have seen in this segment, this SME segment, is that most of the business owners get a shock and then they become emotional and they are clueless as to what to do. And they take emotional decisions that is even dangerous for the organization. Some take quick decision, let me close down this business and not go to work. Let me sell this asset and survive. They sometimes take irrational decisions. And that is another problem we have. And the other thing is, we also need to help the people to digest the reality, because that is not happening even at the large organizational levels. We need to let people know what this reality is all about And it's just that the environment is turbulent doesn't mean that you need to get everything into your head and you become distressed. And this is the time you need your mental capacity at the highest level. And I'm telling you, this is a mistake that most of the organizations do when they are in distressed situation financially. The main items they cut on their budget is marketing and training, right? And I think these are somewhat important in a crisis situation. Marketing is to show your world that you are still stable and up and running, right? Rather than being invisible. Maybe even if you part that one a little bit, the training bit, training, I don't talk about this technical training and all that, but boosting your moral capacity, right? Because this is the time you need the best of your employees to contribute to the organization in difficult times. They need to stretch themselves and work extra. But if they are distressed, they don't even give their normal input, right? And the fourth thing is, and this is an area where I get a lot of requests these days from organization to help people manage their personal finances. Because even if you have a large employee base in your organization, you may be a large corporate, but the problem is people are distressed. Some organizations have taken decision to cut or at least reduce some of the benefits, right, to survive. Some of the senior level executives even have got a pay cut for certain cases. And on the other side, you have distress at the home front, managing your finances there, because a lot of the avenues are closed and you may have to now incur extra costs. I know there are certain struggles in this is middle income layer people. If you have two children who are schooling and who are supposed to get into the Zoom class, right? They have only one computer maybe. Then you need to look for two computers, right? So these are some of the middle class issues that we have in today's context. Forget about the lower level, we have different issues. But all these issues stem back to managing your personal finances. It's also important for the organization to give some dose to their employees how to manage your salary, how to manage your finances. So if I can see there's a lot of distress in the middle income earning space because people are used to expensive lifestyles and they are used to luxury spending. Luxury spending is considered as basic spending. So they don't even distinguish between the two, basics and luxury, right? And another point is saving habit, right? People think you have to save the leftovers after spending, which is a wrong formula to apply. You never find that leftover, right? So we have to build a habit among our people, employees, and even at organizational levels. Whatever the earnings you have, first keep something aside and then talk about spending, because that is very important to build that habit and mindset to keep that, because that will build your fund base for a rainy day. And this is one of the mistakes that most of the organizations did even after they got hit from the pandemic for the first wave, right? After the first wave, okay, you somehow managed it. Now you forgot that we have faced a difficult time. Everything was perfect. Okay, let's go and enjoy the rainbow. And we forgot that there's sometimes, or mostly, there is a rain after the rainbow, right? Be prepared for that as well. So not being pessimistic, but being prepared for what may come on your way. And I will just stop my explanation with one more point. This is very important at the strategic level, not only at the lower level, even at large organization, strategic level, there's this new concept called ripple intelligence. We talk about different intelligences. This ripple intelligence is the ability of the executives or leaders to understand the ripple effect of things. You know what ripple effect means? When you put something in water, that you can see the ripples going, right? And you can see with the corona pandemic, we can see the ripple effect, right? How it spreads, right? So we also need to see, when you see an incident, when you see a situation, when you see a hiccup in an organization, how it can have a ripple effect on your organization, and plan ahead before it kills your business. So for example, I have advised many of my clients maybe you are not affected too much at this point in your time, but it's always a good idea not just look at next 3 months, look at next 2 years or 3 years. Are you able to sustain with this current context? Therefore, it may be a good idea to downsize your business for a while. Although you can run properly, still it's a good idea to downscale and ensure your sustainability than surviving in the short run. So because you might have to plan for that. Because unlike those days when you plan, sometimes we say when you plan, you have to have plan B at least. But today, plan B is not an option. Plan B is a must, and you need to have plan C and D as well. Scenario planning. And we talk about these with strategic plans. You have to go back to your drawing board for most of your strategic planning exercises. So yeah, those are some of the things I just want to highlight. So in simple terms, risk management is not something that is relevant for top corporates. It has to be at all levels of business. I think it is relevant for the lower levels of business because they are highly vulnerable.
Thank you, Chaminda. I think that's valuable advice. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So it is important. Planning is of paramount importance in whatever the size of the business is. I think we've seen clearly, even small or big or whatever the organization, if you don't plan your business continuities, contingency plans, and also disaster recovery plans, and we see that they're going down the drain. So I'll put a quick question to Sanjay. I mean, Sanjay, I mean, that's my pet area, logistics, and you also have done a lot of work in your previous life, right? So, I mean, you know, Sri Lanka is strategically located, and we've been talking about for the past so many years, and, you know, and Sri Lanka is in the busiest east-west shipping route, and especially you see now most countries in the global arena, they put all their eggs into the Chinese basket, and China was considered the factory of the world. And now there is a big shift in the thinking globally to relocate and, you know, get it closer to your home, like, you know, offshoring, you know, getting closer to your home. So you see, especially, I mean, companies like Apple have already, their contract manufacturer Foxconn already have shifted some of their Apple phone 11 manufacturing to Chennai, and they're also, you know, committing $1 billion to set up factories in Hyderabad. So we are just close by. What opportunities and prospects do we already have to really exploit this opportunity? Because you already last week we had the first ever investment for the Hambantota port area. So what are your thoughts and what opportunities lie ahead for us? Because we have been talking about it for so long.
I think, again, it's a very pertinent question. There is quite a bit of supply chain realignment that's happening, apart from the geopolitics, which may probably take a little bit of a cooling down with the US election. But if you look at the supply chain realignment, that is more about the, like what Chaminda mentioned, it's the you need a plan B and a C and a D. So I think that's what a lot of people are looking at and planning for. So it happens in two ways. One is that existing businesses benefiting. Second one is new investments coming into the country. So if I take the first part of it, if you look at this year as a whole, up to now in BOI, we have inked not FDI coming in, so let's be very clear on it. In terms of deals we have inked, so that the money will come in the next subsequent years, close to about 1.8 billion. Now, most of those, or substantial part of that, is existing investors here expanding. Now, they are expanding to catch that shift in the volumes that's happening in China, Vietnam, or Bangladesh, and we are taking that volume. So that's existing businesses expanding. So that I have seen it more than what we have seen in the other years. Then the second part is the new businesses we are trying to create. Now, if you look at the budget, if you look at the back in March, when in the beginning of the COVID, when I'm setting down the strategy for BOI and the thrust sectors, we talked about 5-6 thrust sectors. Now that was the beginning of the unraveling of some of the supply chain concentration that was happening, and I was to consider what supply chains will get disrupted, what are beneficial for the country. If you bring those supply chain verticals within the country, where will we get the largest amount of inclusive growth? So that's why certain push have been made for whether it is rubber products, right? So Thai manufacturing coming here. Whether it is the pharmaceutical, we are trying to build the pharmaceutical zone in Arubokka, which is in Hambantota, and one in Anuradhapura. Then there's so much pharma investments coming in. Because one good example for pharma, if you take the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, 70% is made in China. The rest is in India and a few other countries like Ireland, Singapore, and the Caribbean, and the US accounts for the rest. But most of the generics are in these two countries, and they want to have a diversity location. Then you look at Sri Lanka, again, as a logistic point of view, in the east-west line, we are very nicely strategically placed. Then we are a country which can trade with Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, all three without an issue. East Africa access, almost 1.8 billion people in those areas. Thirdly, we have a very educated workforce which can be easily trainable. Now, people like Foxconn moved to India because their Foxconn plants in China had to go into robotics because it was too expensive them to do the assembly. You had 40,000 people in one facility in Foxconn. We can't never get those here because even in apparel, where I'm already employing 300,000 people, because that's a kind of a one-track workforce because you'll be continuously slowing, but there's nothing much you can upgrade point of view. So we need to think about verticals which we can upgrade, and the technology ICT is one of those things. So we're taking advantage of those things. So the work we have been doing is to lay foundation. One is that India, under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, started this whole campaign of Made in India, the revival of the Invest India, which is the DOI equivalent. So they had a 3-4 year head start. And also they have 1.2 billion population to cater to. So some of these companies look into that. If you look at what happened in China, it is not only the manufacturing in China to export to US, but also the research, the emergence of the medium affluent consumers. They want to be placed in the country to be able to do that. And places like India has been more insular. So you see a little bit of movement there. So there are companies who are moving to Vietnam. If you look at it in the supply chain point of view, that's because the ecosystem to China is much closer. Then if you look at Sri Lanka point of view, then it matters the trade agreements. Then you need to have regional accumulation. So that means that the term is that I can bring parts from India, Bangladesh, and make in Sri Lanka, but I could consider as made in Sri Lanka. The value addition can be considered made in Sri Lanka because they come from the neighboring countries. So I think those things needs to be come into place. Some of these things which we didn't have in place. So as we put these building blocks together, we will see more coming in. I think for us, what matters is the quantity and the quality both matters, because what we look for is we are at a 4,000 per capita GDP. If you're going to grow at 6% GDP for next 5, 7, 10 years, we're going to double our economy. So at that time, we need to have two things. One is we need to have a scalable workforce, which we can upgrade the skills. Secondly, we need to have in a way, inclusive growth. අපි සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ ඇති නැති පෙරතරේ අඩු වෙන විදියට රටේ දියුණුව ගෙනියන්න ඕනේ. ඒකට තමයි අර small and medium enterprises චමින් කිව්වා වගේ අපි ඇත්තටම ඒ ගමන යන්න ඕනේ. දැන් රබර් වගේ එකක් කියන එකේ වාසිය තියෙන්නේ ටයර් ෆැක්ටරි 2000ක් එම්ප්ලොයි කරන විතරක් නෙමෙයි. shipping lines වලට containers යනවා. දැන් අපි මේ ෆැක්ටරි එකකට container 40000 logistics truck drivers ලා. එතකොට ඒකට රබර් සප්ලයි කරන්න මුළු රබර් සප්ලයි චේන් එක. Whether you're a landowner, whether you're a grower, whether you're a rubber tapper, whether you're a rubber manufacturer or a centrifugal guy, which of it is. So the number of jobs you create is much higher. So the multiply effect you call it. So those are the things that what matters and to take advantage of. So long story short, yes, there's not been done. Yes, there's a great opportunity. As I said in the beginning, there's always a silver lining in every dark cloud. The question is how quickly can we capitalize? But that capitalization comes back to how well we are disciplined to take and keep this COVID under control. And I think for that, when you always point the finger as your responsibility, as 4 fingers point towards you. So I think each of us has a lot to play, and we hold our responsibilities and do our part. I think this would be something we can also win on.
Okay, thank you. I think we are coming to the end of the session. There are so many questions, mostly on the health space, asking whether virus can be spread through packages, packaging, whether we will get the injection, the vaccine on time and all that. I think all of these information has been communicated well in the media and it's available in the internet. So I'm sure because we have come to the end and some of our panelists are also having other commitments. So let me finally ask all the panelists, just give a parting remark on how we should face the new normal with confidence, because it has to be some a positive way. What has happened has happened. Let's move on. So I would like starting off with Chaminda, your parting remarks.
Right. I think in simple terms, learn the art of sleeping with enemy. Right?
One.
That's the way to handle it, because you don't consider yourself being outside of it. It will be around. Don't just think that just because there's a vaccine, things will be over. So now it has given us a new way of life. So my simple suggestion is redefine your lifestyle. Redefine your lifestyle. Forget about the rest of it. First you have to adjust by yourself, right? Redefine the way you think, redefine the way you look at the world, redefine the way you live. And in that is the new normal, right? Define your new normal lifestyle, and that will suit the context. Second thing is, now accept, at least now accept that change is a constant, right? So everything changes. So expect the unexpected every day when you wake up. Don't expect the same world. The world can be totally different one. So sleep with that in mind. The next day when you wake up, things can be totally different, but don't take anything as a surprise. I think we need to learn how to take surprise as normal things in our lives. And those two steps, if you take, redefine your lifestyle, expect the unexpected, I think we are ready to face anything in life until we find that silver lining, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Chaminda. Very positive. Yeah, doctor, over to you.
Yeah, so new normal is not only the hand washing, not touching the face, mouth, nose, and eyes, not only the keeping distance, not only the use face mask daily and routinely. So many things, and everything in your life is has to be the new normal, as Shaminda correctly said. So we have to, deal with our colleagues and family and the relatives and everyone uh, uh, with the things that in your mind that anyone can have COVID. The danger of COVID is if you get COVID, there is a tendency and possibility, 5% chance you will die. So that has to be in your mind. So even though there is a vaccine is found, still we do not know how effective, how efficient, and what is the percentage of the safety for you, and all the things are still being conducting clinical trials and all. So best the mechanism is with everyone. That is, you have to make sure that you will not get the infection, and you have to make sure that you will not share infection with others. So that responsibility, that the workforce, the members of this workforce, everyone, as Sanjay said, and as I earlier said, so everyone has to take the responsibility. If somebody is pointing their fingers to others, so they have to point back on themselves, and it is our own responsibility. And if that thing happens, so we can battle with this comeback COVID, and may make sure that we can win this battle.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Gayani, and all the Miloda.
Yeah, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you, madam, and eminent speakers. Yeah, madam, yeah.
Sanjay, I think I want a parting remark from you as well, because very important role that you play in the country. Yeah.
I think again is two things. One is it is the thriving in advocacy in uncertainty. And I think I remember there was a thought piece that when I was at BCG, we wrote about that, thriving in uncertainty. And I think the world has become much more uncertainty, and I would say spiky, than what we were talking about as uncertainty at that point. So really, I would say is the paranoid survive. So the paranoia is not about the virus, but paranoia about being a contingency, risk planning, what if scenarios, how you plan to do this. And then the second part of it is the opportunities, whether it is opportunities for you to invest, whether it's opportunity for you to buy a distressed asset and turn around, whether it is a new business that you get into, whether it is IT project or a manufacturing, whichever it is. So this is going to whip up quite a few of those opportunities. Some could be opportunistic, but something also could be systematic. I think what I would suggest is to keep the eyes out, and you will not get another opportunity of this nature. And I don't want to see another opportunity that means another pandemic to be hit in a global scale. But take advantage while it's there. But keep in mind that some of the challenges associated with COVID. Yes, there is a risk. You would have a similar risk in crossing the road as well if you're not paying attention. So I think we just need to make sure that we manage and take things on the chin as they come and do the best we can.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think I'm really thankful to all of the panelists and also the participants for typing a lot of questions. I'm really sorry about that because of the time pressures that we have, we are unable to answer all your questions. But I would guess most of the questions we were able to answer. But as most of the panelists mentioned, I mean, we are living in tough times, true. But I think although this is a crisis situation, we must look at this as an opportunity, because no point in just going down the drain thinking negatively about it. We are not getting anywhere. So all of us are in the same storm, but in different boats. It's up to us to look at, based on the choices that we have made, whether we are going to wade through this storm and come out strongly. I think this is a new normal that is going to pan up, and we will also have to look at new ways of managing this situation and also facing the new reality as well, and come out as a strong country. And it is up to us to get us out of the wood and become stronger. So I'm thankful to Miloda for really organizing such a useful and a apt topic. And this is a series of programs, first of a series of programs that they will be organizing. And I'm sure the participants will be also joining us for the future programs as well. And I would now hand it over to Tanuja for coordinating this program. Thank you very much, Tanuja, for doing everything behind the scene to make this a successful webinar.
Thank you, Madam, and eminent speakers. It's been a very fascinating and informative discussion regarding the topic of mistakes, missteps, and lessons learned from COVID-19. I strongly believe the audience have identified their individual responsibilities. If we do not take our responsibility seriously, this can be worse and worse. We try to make awareness what went wrong and how to look forward in this webinar. We must learn and practice how live with the pandemic and new way of living with discipline. Before the wrap-up session, I have short notice for the audience. I kindly request you to all submit your feedback, which we have shared with regarding webinar. And also, we request you to stay in tune with our next webinar to discuss the ways of developing COVID responsive policies for your organization in an effective manner. The more we know, the deeper we will understand our topic. So it will be easier to implement it. So if you want any clarification, or if you want Miloda to train you or your staff on these concepts discussed in the webinar, we request you to contact Miloda Academy Financial Studies. It is my privilege to deliver a vote of thanks on this occasion. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Mrs. Gainidi Alvis for moderating the fruitful discussion. I also wish to express my gratitude to our honorable delegates who blessed us with their presence and look out the valuable time of your busy schedules. We all appreciate your contribution to the webinar, especially Dr. Jairuan Bandara, Mr. Chamindu Kumarsiri, and Mr. Sanjay Mahottala. And also, we hope to meet you on our upcoming webinars too. The audience who join Zoom and who watching us on Facebook, I would like to extend a special thanks for your valuable time and consideration. You can watch this recorded webinar on our Facebook page and also YouTube channel, as no program can become successful with a single person. So I extend my big thanks to our acting co-CEO, Mr. Udita Andrade, and all our Miloda staff to putting things together effectively. Thank you very much again for your precious time. Before end the webinar, I would like to request from you all, plan your works, don't ruin your life. Stay safe and good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.